The world almost ended on a Tuesday, and only one man stopped it because he had a gut feeling. September 26, 1983, shortly after midnight, inside a top-secret bunker hidden in the forests outside Moscow. The air is thick with the smell of ozone and stale coffee. This is Serpukhov 15, the nerve center of the Soviet Union's early warning satellite system. On the walls, massive screens monitor the horizon of the United States, watching for the flash of a launch. The man in charge is Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. It is supposed to be a quiet shift, but at 0:14, the silence is shattered. A siren piercing, electronic and relentless, fills the bunker. A massive red screen flashes a single word: launch. According to the most advanced computer system the Soviet Union has ever built, a Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile has just been fired from a base in Montana. It is carrying a nuclear warhead with the power of 800,000 tons of TNT. It is heading straight for Moscow. Stanislav Petrov has 15 minutes to decide if the human race continues to exist. To understand the weight on Petrov's shoulders, you have to understand the world in 1983. This wasn't just another year of the Cold War. It was the most dangerous year since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Just 3 weeks earlier, the Soviet Union had shot down a civilian Korean Airlines flight, KAL-007, killing 269 people, including a US congressman. The Kremlin was convinced that the United States was using the incident as a pretext for a surprise nuclear first strike. In Washington, President Ronald Reagan had recently dubbed the USSR the Evil Empire and announced the Star Wars missile defense program. The Soviet leadership was terrified. They had launched Operation RYAN, the largest peacetime intelligence-gathering mission in their history, to look for signs that the US was preparing for a decapitation strike. The Soviet military doctrine was clear. If the US launches, we launch back immediately. There is no room for debate. There is no time for a second opinion. The strategy was launch on warning, and the warning had just arrived. Petrov stares at the screen. His heart is hammering against his ribs. His subordinates are looking at him, their faces pale in the red glow of the alarm lights. They are waiting for him to pick up the phone to the general staff. If he makes that call, the Soviet leadership will authorize a full-scale retaliatory strike. Within 30 minutes, 3,000 nuclear warheads will rain down on every major city in America. But Petrov hesitates. He looks at the data. The satellite, codenamed OKO, is reporting a 100% probability of a hit. But something feels wrong. Why only one missile? He mutters. If the United States were going to start World War III, why would they send a single scout? It made no sense. A first strike should be a tidal wave of thousands of missiles to wipe out the Soviet ability to fight back. One missile was a suicide mission. Then the siren screams again. Second launch. Then a third, a fourth, a fifth. The computer is now reporting 5 Minuteman missiles in the air. The reliability indicator on the screen is at the highest possible level. The clock is ticking. The missiles are already over the North Pole. In less than 10 minutes, they will reach Soviet airspace. The bunker is in a state of controlled panic. Petrov's officers are shouting for him to follow protocol. Protocol says that the computer is infallible. Protocol says that the OKO satellites are the pinnacle of Soviet engineering. Petrov has 2 phones on his desk. One is a direct line to the duty officer of the Soviet General Staff. If Petrov reports a target visual, the gears of the apocalypse begin to turn. The Soviet Union's dead hand system would be activated. Even if Petrov's bunker were destroyed, the missiles would fire automatically. But Petrov is a software engineer, not just a soldier. He knows that the system is new. He knows that machines can be too logical. He looks at the ground-based radar crews. They report nothing. No missiles on their screens. But the ground radar can only see a few hundred miles. By the time the missiles show up on their screens, it will be too late to launch a counterattack. The Soviet Union would be blinded and burned. Petrov has 5 minutes left. He picks up the phone. His hand is shaking. He speaks to the duty officer at the Soviet Army headquarters. His voice is calm, though his skin is soaked in cold sweat. "I am reporting a system malfunction," Petrov says. He is lying. He has no proof it's a malfunction. He is betting the lives of 200 million Soviets and 300 million Americans on a gut feeling. For the next 5 minutes, Stanislav Petrov sits in total silence. He watches the countdown clock on the wall. If he is wrong, he will be responsible for the greatest catastrophe in human history. He will be the man who let his country be destroyed because he didn't trust his own equipment. He imagines the flashes of light. He imagines the shockwaves. He waits for the ground to shake. He waits for the reports of explosions from the outskirts of Moscow. The clock hits 0. Nothing happens. 5 more minutes pass. Still nothing. No sirens from the city, no loss of communication. The world outside is still asleep. The missiles never arrived. Stanislav Petrov lights a cigarette. His legs are so weak he can barely stand. He had just won the ultimate game of Russian roulette. So, what happened? Why did the most advanced satellite system in the world see 5 missiles that weren't there? An investigation later revealed a bizarre cosmic coincidence. The Oko satellite had been at a specific angle where the sun's reflection off the top of high-altitude clouds over Montana looked exactly like the heat signature of a rocket engine. The computer, programmed to be perfect, saw the light and assumed the worst. You would think Stanislav Petrov would be hailed as a global hero. He wasn't. The Soviet military was embarrassed. To admit Petrov was right was to admit that their multi-billion ruble defense system was flawed. Petrov was interrogated. He was reprimanded for not filling out his logbooks correctly during the crisis. He was eventually sidelined and took an early retirement. He lived the rest of his life in a small, cramped apartment in a suburb of Moscow, living on a tiny pension, surviving mostly on bread and tea. The world didn't even know his name until the late 1990s, when the records were finally declassified. Stanislav Petrov passed away in 2017. He never called himself a hero. He always said the same thing: "I was just at the right place at the right time." But the truth is more profound. In the age of machines, in the age of perfect algorithms and automated war, the only thing that saved us was a single human being who dared to say, "The machine is wrong." If you want to discover more figures who held the fate of the world in their hands, hit subscribe. This is real history. This is the truth.